stuff is.
Right. Right. Lovely to see you.
Okay, so I just want to introduce our speaker today, who's just going to come and share his heart and his joy. And Matt, I just have to say, every time I see you, my heart is filled with joy when I just see you. And, someone said, well, probably because he's a good looking guy. And I said, no, that's not it. It's your youth and how clear your mind is at your age. I was not there in my 20s. I was concerned about, being safe and building security and having a good job and making money. I mean, I didn't have your level of clarity even remotely. And so I thank you for just being willing to share with us. And again, whatever you have to share, we'll be listening for it. So with that, please, Matt.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much. I guess if you bring time into the equation, then that seems like a thing. But if you've been through enough lifetimes of trying the wrong things, you know exactly what you want. So that's what I want to speak about today is just let your life be a beacon of peace and joy. And I don't want to make this all about light and love because all we can look at is that blockage to what it is that we truly want. What we really want is really, if you're going to be selfish about one thing with a capital S, it's let's put all our pretenses down about what we're not in alignment with, what we're not truthful about ourselves with, what we're not honest about ourselves with. We get very clear in what we want, and we don't have guilt over what we want, which is true, pure love. It's release from self-defined limitations, self-defined stories, you could say. And so another word came to mind, or a phrase came to mind. Happiness is an inner decision. And so we're in this strange dream-like play of color, of bodies, of dancing, of light and energy. And you look around and you wonder what it is that why are you here? Why are we seeming to be in these bodies? What is it that we even want in these bodies? Why do we get up each day? Why don't we just jump in the ocean and never return? What is it that we wake up every day? Why do we breathe? It's because we know deep, deep down, whether we remember or not, there was an inner decision made in order to experience some kind of density, some kind of separation, in order to see something that was outside of yourself, some kind of exterior reality that seemed to be outside of you, that seemed to be something that you could move around in and somehow know yourself more deeply. You could somehow veil what it was that you were. It was a complete draping in matter and time and space, you could even say. And so it's very easy to go into this whole thing with, well, space and time are illusory, everything's an illusion. But when we look at the word illusion, illusion doesn't mean not real. It means something is not as it seems. That's what the true word of illusion is. It's a very different to negating space and time. So when you made the choice in spirit, whether you remember it or not, we were out there flying, and there's not much going on in the spirit realm. There isn't much opportunity for depth, you could say. It's very, very quick. I don't know if many of you are remembering this, but it was pure instant manifestations. There were no bodies. It was the play of light. It was light and color. And the planet Earth especially has such a opportunity because the depths of the darkness in this planetary field is so deep that we could lose ourselves so deeply, yet still find ourselves again. And so there are entities which are envious of this planetary system because of the depths that we can go down to and still find the light. And so just coming to this appreciation, sometimes we sometimes find ourselves so lost within these densities. But it's actually the greatest joy, the greatest story you'll ever tell yourself, because it's only you telling the story. You've never gone anywhere, but it's such a story of the deeper and the darker you go, the more blissful and the more joyous the release. It's like the rubber band analogy. So the further you pull something back, the more ecstatically you're shot up. And so we find ourselves in this density of deep confusion at times. There is so much to look into. There's so much energy, especially in this period of this planetary system. A lot of people, a lot of beings found themselves ready to enter into a certain period of time where great awakening was unfolding. The energies are just perfect. The speed at which you can wake up is so what's the word? It's so rich, you could say, in its acceleration. And so what we start to find is, well, what is it that seems to be blocking us? If there is a block to these higher, you could say these higher ways of thinking, broader perspectives of who we are, which is really just broader perspectives of reality. As we become more and more aligned with truth, with really our authentic expression of who we are, what isn't allowed through the gate, you could say, these smaller and smaller gates, as we fall into deeper and deeper surrenders, as we fall into deeper and deeper alignment with joy and peace in who we are, self-limiting concepts, certain belief systems just can't make it through the door. This is almost because at each point there is a checkpoint, you could say. What are we still allowing to be true in the system for us to move through these checkpoints? And so self-limiting beliefs is such a great phrase, because we see that all limitation is self-imposed. A lot of the path is basically opening to the receiving of awakening. There isn't anything about anything you need to do except for the most core fundamental trait, you could say, which is the trait of allowing. So the trait of allowing is really a trust that everything is given to you through the opening of when you feel you are worthy for it. Because you receive what you're worthy of, what you feel you're worthy of. You have your hand on the gate. So if you start to see it this way around, rather than the scarcity mindset, which is I need to find something, I need to get something outside of myself, whether it's another theory, another insight, another something that I don't yet have. The attitude shift is one of, what am I not yet allowing myself to receive? What do I not feel worthy of right now? So we receive as much love as we believe we are worthy of. We receive as much awakening as we think we're worthy of. You could meditate for 10 hours a day for 10 years in a row, and you could have more success in just opening to the belief systems you have in one instant of, why am I not ready to let go of limiting beliefs, limiting definitions, even to do with, you could say even abundance, but abundance to me is nothing to do with money. You could say abundance is really just the ability to do what you need to do when you need to do it. You could say abundance is the ability to be in your alignment no matter what is in the bank. Abundance is the trust that you have that what you're experiencing is themes of duality that you've chosen to explore within a density in order to return and know yourself more deeply. And so no matter how confused or lost you find yourself, there is a part of yourself that knows you've chosen this exact path of being in the darkness in order to know the light more deeply. So whenever you find yourself in any confusion, even if you don't know the way out, even if you don't know the way to let go, as long as you know that you've decided this and you've actually chosen each experience, whether you remember it or not, is such an empowering memory. So happiness being an inner decision. What comes to mind here is, like I said, it's not all about the light and love on its own. It's about looking at what is it that's resisting the light coming through. Because we are like little beaver dams, making our little dams when the river's trying to run. You don't have to push the river. The river is full flowing with the whole universe behind it. All that you can do is build up your resistances to the flow of love that's always trying to flow through, which physically manifests as some kind of bliss up the spine. Sometimes it's just a joy in your heart. Whatever this love is to you that's trying to flow, you have no responsibility in trying to force love to flow. You can just look at what am I doing to build up my defenses against it. That is the only thing you can really look at. Because if you try to force the flood through, you're basically not trusting love or not trusting God in the love that you know is the only substance of this whole universe of mind. So what is it that feels a need to block love and freedom from flowing through itself? Well, we said there's some kind of choice to experience duality. We said there's some kind of choice to condense down into a confused, distorted state in order to experience bodies, a richness of life. But at a certain point, if you're here, it usually means we're looking at, well, maybe these stories and these dead ends have served their purpose. And I'm looking at, well, what's more real? What's more true? So with these blockages, the only way that ever helped here was really looking at what's the juice? What am I getting out of? What's the payoff to keeping these blockages in place? What am I secretly enjoying about suffering? So it's slightly different to keeping it real that we really do want freedom. Because I can tell you now, if freedom was all you wanted, freedom would be all that you see. Because the dream is a wish-fulfilling dream. And so we have to get so honest with what it is that we want. Even if someone says, I just want freedom, deep down, if there's some kind of resistance to something, then there's a conflict of interest going on somewhere. And so we all really start to see that the only way through is pure honesty with experience. What is it that I'm getting out of some kind of self-limiting definition? What's the pair? What's the juice? Let's be honest, because it's very juicy and there's actually nothing wrong with the negative path. I've loved spending incarnations exploring all these different themes, all of these different things. But what is it when you get to a certain point where you just want truth, that you have some kind of lying to yourself that I want truth, I want freedom, but I'm not willing to let go of certain ideas, which is always about myself. Because the ideas you have about reality is the ideas you have about yourself, because reality is a reflection of who you think you are. So this isn't theory. There's no theory here. This is pure physics. Like if you were to scientifically go into this, take away all the drama of religion, take away everything. The simple physics of this is you can only experience what you're the vibration of, because reality is a crystal clear mirror. So most people are waiting for their circumstances to change in order to feel happy, in order to feel the joy and the truth of that they are. So if you can see how insane this is like going up to a mirror and waiting for the mirror to change before you do. But the mirror can only reflect back your self-confined ideas about yourself. That is what reflection is. That's what duality is, not two. There isn't a mirror that you can kind of wait to be happy and then you're joyous and happy. Then you're going to release yourself. So we're in this kind of catch-22, chicken and the egg, or chicken in the car, you know, when you're trying to wait to see who's going to get out of the way first. But when I say happiness is in a decision, you have to decide that what you want is truth and love more than you want the juice of waiting for something outside of yourself to finally be arranged. So we can wait all our life for a mirror to change, but at a certain point, you've got to see that to put some kind of power outside of yourself of what it is to be in alignment is to basically be in irresponsibility and immaturity. And we don't have to judge this in any way, but we can call it irresponsible. Now let's really dissect the word responsibility, your ability to respond. So all that we can do in responsibility is look at where we're at, the circumstances we seem to be in, and to notice what it's like to really get honest with why we think we're stuck. What am I holding on to which doesn't feel like if I release it will serve me? Because anything that seems to be defending ourselves against love, deep down there's a belief that this is actually serving me in some way. The beaver that builds its dam has been told that if he lets the water come through, it's going to drown or something. But the funny thing is, the only parts of you that drown is the parts of you that are suffering. This is the big thing that no one tells you about, is that to let the love and the light flood through, yes, something dies, but it's the part of you that you want to die. But because you become so identified with a certain aspect of this density, you think that it's your death. But who you are can't die. And you know that deep, deep down. Why? That's why it's so there's so much suffering on the path, because you know your potential to live this limitless life of knowing no death, yet you still cling to ideas of death in the hope that this idea will bring you some kind of satisfaction within form. So the true release is the seeing through death. So it's pure, just, we can make it so simple. It's what we know that's coming is the deepest fear, that we think that we fear the unknown, but you can't fear the unknown, because you wouldn't know what you're fearing. What we really fear is something coming along and taking away everything we do know. That's what we really fear. But as Krishnamurti says, what you really fear is everything that you cling to that seems to be giving stability. That's what we really fear being taken away, because we've invested poorly in these choices, these little toys in duality that we think are going to bring us some kind of happiness, when really we know deep, deep down that this whole reality is an investment game, and what you invest in your beliefs in, what do you believe is more true? So there's no such thing as doubt. Doubt is a complete man-made thing. You're always putting your full trust in something, whether it's positivity, whether it's love, or it's light, or whether it's self-defining negative beliefs. You've got your chips, and you're always moving them into some kind of, you're playing like poker or something. You're always putting your trust in a certain way of thinking, a certain way of seeing yourself. That's all that you can do in this whole of reality. You can't do anything except see yourself in different ways. So in the lower densities, this really thick feeling of space and time, basically what we've done is condense down our self-perception of who we are into a physical body that is kind of at the effect of an outside world that has these limitations placed on it. And all that's happening when we're ascending through these frequencies is seeing ourselves more and more in its truer form, which is completely limitless, which is completely without any limitation on what it wants to do. Because each of you have a certain expression which becomes increasingly more difficult to keep down in a kind of repressed state, a kind of you all have this unique energetic expression of the infinite that you came here in this physical reality in order to explore, and then to repress that is the cause of so many disease and so many suffering, so many really spiritual journeys is through the repression of your own light. You didn't come into physical reality as infinite beings to just kind of sit on the sofa and then not really do anything else. All tension is the knowing of what you're capable of, yet the incessant belief that you have to keep yourself confined to a framework that no longer serves you. So it's such a frustrating path sometimes when you know your limitless nature to love and to express yourself in this density. Even in spirit realm, I had a flash one time. It was a remembrance of the actual choice of incarnation. It was like, right, it's time to explore duality. And then it was only revealed to me because I got to a certain point where I thought, well, what's the point anymore? Like why am I even in, like, what's the point in Earth? And then with that memory, it was like, oh yes, there was a choice. It was a choice to experience something other than everything. And so when you can experience something other than everything, the everything that you are can know itself more deeply. Because if everything stays as everything, it just knows itself as light. It doesn't have these experiments it can do in duality to taste itself in ways it's never tasted itself. So any frustration on the path is basically your deep down knowing that you chose to come here to experience what really Jesus was saying, to be the Christ, to be the Christ consciousness that you are in your individual expression. And then you've then put a lid on that light that's always trying to burst through. So we always bring it back to the water trying to flood through the barrier. It's the same as the light trying to flood. Or in Eastern traditions, it's up the spine, the Kundalini, whatever it is, it's always trying to come through. There's always this eruption. It's in all the movies. It goes into Hollywood. There's always a character that's trying to break through, trying to, James Bond is trying to succeed. Whatever it is, it's always the same archetypal story. So we get so frustrated with this that it spurts into our art, into our movies, this kind of hero's journey. So we know that we're so capable of love and expression, and not just expression of pure light, but also expression of how we perceive ourselves to be, whatever we think we're going through, whatever we think it is, that there is a tendency to think that really we're suppressing our darkness. But to me, it's always been, we're really just suppressing our light and our joy in order to keep some kind of lid on our suffering, because there's a juice to smallness and there's a juice to limitation. So I know I'm talking quite a lot, but it's nice to get out a lot of stuff that maybe a kind of framework into this of what it means to say that happiness is an inner decision. So with happiness being an inner decision, the key thing to see here is that the inner decision can't be touched by anything in this world. You could have nothing. You could be the happiest person I ever met, had no arms, no legs, and just had a cup in his mouth getting change in Indonesia. And he was the happiest person I've ever seen. So then you could see, like, well, what's my excuse? Well, I'm kind of worried about my money. And it's a complete choice to keep going a belief system of worry when really we just know that it's an investment in some kind of smallness, some kind of prolonging of delay of letting the light through. So with happiness being in a decision, the key thing here is that it's not a happiness based on the reflection of reality coming back to you, and therefore I'm happy. You have to make that decision. We don't have to. If you would like a more of a flowing experience, the choice for happiness is untouchable by anything on the screen, because who you are is untouchable by anything on the screen. Nothing in this reality has ever touched who you truly are, because this whole world is just a play of color and light. And we've, these vibrations that we say is our body. I mean, if you even look at a science program, they would say there isn't even a body. It's just vibrations going a bit slower than the rest of the spirit realms. And so it's just a play of vibration that we've gotten so identified with that we think that who we are can be affected by something in this density. So fearlessness is not some kind of winning over the world. It's really the seeing that when you see through death, when you see through that who you are can't be touched by anything on the screen, that is the true sense of fearlessness, how I see it. Because no one wants to win over the world. No one wants to get revenge over the images on the screen. This is really a immature way of seeing enlightenment, some kind of like, well, I'll be the most evolved, just I'll be enlightened and everyone will then like bow down to me. It kind of keeps fear in the system, a kind of irresponsible way of seeing it. But it's not what we truly want. What we truly want is the pure seeing of who we are being beyond this world, and then also the expression of that divinity through whichever medium that you find you're in, whichever energetic signature that you know yourself to be, which brings us to alignment, because we all have a unique expression of who we are. And there's a Chinese proverb that I said in a video the other day, where if you had your alignment of who you are and what you know to be true and the expression of yourself as your authentic way, the tension between the gap between who you know yourself to be, which is a straightforward compass, And any kind of direction off the side, let's say you're just not in alignment, the way that you live, the way that you speak, the way that you express yourself isn't authentic to you. That gap between that and that is the tension. And the relaxation is really following the expression of who you are, which is always a compass of truth. There's always a forward walking, which is a stillness, but it's like being in a storm, and no matter what comes up in the events, you stay in your alignment, whether that's what you know about yourself or what you know about how you want to present to the world. It's a quality of integrity and love and truth to who you are. So misalignment is a great signal in the body. So misalignment will show up in your life as disease. It will show up in your life as tension, as amount of times I would choose a certain path, maybe a certain project at work or something. I knew deep down that it wasn't something that I was in alignment with. The body would start to fall sick at a certain point. Like the body became such a signal of not walking a path that I knew to be true, which is only ever going to be straight ahead in your decision of what you want out of this density. So misalignment becomes such a sensitivity. If you could have one trait, I would say, become sensitive to any attempt to be something other than who you are. Any kind of limitation becomes such an obvious contrast to what it's like to be in the flow of who you are, that there is just almost just a pain. It becomes intolerable to speak a certain way. Usually it's an intolerability with negative self-defining beliefs. This is really what Christ was talking about when Christ and the message of Christ, which was who you are is completely infinite. You're an individual expression of the Christ. And so any kind of sensitivity to anything less than that knowing becomes so obvious. So we start at the end. Don't start that you're working towards sort of Christ consciousness or your liberated nature. Always start with, I am the Christ. Now, what's denying that? What blockages have I set up to that? You've got to go the other way around. Because if you're not willing to see yourself as the Christ, then it just means we're not feeling worthy of the gift that we basically planted as Easter egg into this whole dream, was that we'd see, oh, we were it all along. That's what the whole joke is. That what we've been seeking for was what we are. So it's a nice little Easter egg we put, and those that are not willing to maybe see that will use stepping stones, and there's nothing wrong with that. We'll put it onto Jesus, and Jesus always said, if you're to put a portrait of me up, put yourself up next to me. But many people missed out that one, and we put him up, and then we sort of didn't have the willingness to accept our own light. And so it must be this long-haired man with a beard. But he was just a mirror in your dream that you could put somewhere, the wisdom that you knew you were, in somewhere in the dream, so that at one moment, when you finally met him in who he was, you saw that you were no different from him. This is the true sense of realizing Christ consciousness, was that you can't attain it. All along he was saying, you are the Christ. Be like me. Don't try and get to me. Be like me. It's a decision to see who you are. Like if you were to always chase something, then it's basically saying, as a subconscious belief, I am not this, but one day I will be. So it's a worthiness. When you're so sick and tired of playing small, you finally start to open to the fact that maybe I don't need to achieve anything outside of myself. Maybe it's actually just that I'm in this Christ consciousness, I'm in heaven, so wrapped up, I just need to release and accept the fact I'm already here. This is what it is. It's an acceptance of your unlimited nature. It's a memory. It's not an achievement. This is the little joke that we played as well. It's such a joke, but we didn't come here also just to realize the absolute and then somehow just dissolve into the background of sameness, like some kind of sort of avatar that doesn't speak or anything. You know that you came here to be an individual expression of the absolute within this density. And the reason that we're all speaking today, you've called me into your dream either to trigger you or to find reassurance. There'll be two attitudes here today. You'll either hate me or you'll love me, but neither will be nothing to do with me. It'll be all to do with you. So many people hate me. I get many awful emails, but it's great for me because it means that I'm being a great mirror. Okay. So all I can do is reflect back to you. So if you hate me, you hate yourself. And if you love me, you love you. Well, you know, well, maybe I can still do some cleaning on the mirror, but it's always the same. Like it always comes up. And it's great to be a mirror because it shows, because I have mirrors for me as well. The amount of people I come in, I think you're really triggering me. And I think, well, it can't be you. It must be me because the whole reality is a mirror. Even if someone is doing something that's annoying and is, you know, everyone could admit that is annoying, we can still say, well, I don't have to get triggered by it. Who I am is not touched by anything on the screen. Do you see what I mean? So this is great as well for you to see when you're annoying anyone. It's very easy to jump in the boat. Well, I'm a walking divine mirror. Sometimes there is we are just triggering people because we are also still have shadows to work through. But amount of the times that a lot of people actually overlook themselves and they sell themselves short and they say, well, you know, I'm in this friendship group or something, and maybe you're just outgrowing a certain paradigm, a certain way that you fit yourself into certain workplaces, friendship groups, just ways of seeing yourself that once were at the same frequency, but now just aren't at the same frequency. And you start to maybe just feel guilty sometimes for taking a step into a place that may be more alignment with you, that may be more reflective of how you perceive yourself. Because we really are a reflection of the 5 people we spend the most time with. We really start to become sensitive to locations or things that aren't in alignment with us. And so one hand you could say, well, this is all projection. You should be able to be anywhere in your life. And that's a very guilt repression kind of way of seeing things, because yes, you were not affected by anything on the screen, but don't have the self-limiting action that you can't follow your heart's desire, which will be to release certain areas of your life that no longer serve you, that no longer align with how you perceive yourself. So like, especially workplaces, some people being like soul destroying jobs. And it's usually just an unworthiness to step out of that. You know, they'll say something about money, they'll say something about this. And it's like, if you knew yourself as everything and you knew yourself as completely supported in all of your actions, what would you do? And it's like, well, I wouldn't be here still. And it's like, well, go and do that then. And it's like, sometimes you just want to shake people alive and just be like, if you didn't have any of these limiting factors, what would you do? And then they're like, oh, I wouldn't even be in this country. I wouldn't even be in this. And it's like, it's so interesting to really distill the reasons of why we're in certain things and certain modalities of socializing, modalities of work. Would you be doing the work you're doing? So it all comes full circle to misalignment. When you see that you've even gone an inch out of who you are, like sometimes I'll meet an old group of friends and the energy is very much talking about the past or talking about a thing. And there's nothing wrong with staying in certain energies. Like if someone wants to stay in an energy, but don't have the guilt that you can't step out, because sometimes we're blocking the entrance of new relationships and new opportunities within the workplace because we feel we have to hold on to old frequencies. And these are all just reflectors of the dream. So it's not like we have to judge these images on the screen. We just allow ourselves, again, allowing the new to come in that reflects how we now perceive ourselves. So for example, I came back from America about a month ago to England. I was here for a few weeks and just realized that there was this certain misalignment that started to come, that this belief had to be in England and this. So I thought, well, you know, there's things about money, there's things about this, and I thought, what's most alignment? What is the heart's desire? And so I just booked a flight to Brazil, and now I'm just going to live in Brazil from next week because there's less and less fear over what it is that that can limit you in this way. And sometimes it's not travel, sometimes it's not all these crazy things. Sometimes your alignment is to be the best mum in the world, the best friend in the world, the best at your job, in your city, whatever it is. But as soon as there is a belief in the system that you have to limit yourself in some way, or you need to be inauthentic in order to just survive, then we start to see a festering of just a rumination, just rumination on what you need to be, and your environment will echo back how you feel about yourself. It always agree with you usually. Like, you'll find that it will always just back it up. And so, but there's so many people out there that will say you don't need these self-limiting beliefs, you don't need these things. Actually, we're mostly afraid of our freedom than we're afraid of any kind of darkness. This is always the case. I've never ever gotten through a fear and then realized that it was the fear I was afraid of. It was always, what do I fear most about the release into light? That's what we do, because there is a release that many people are afraid of, because it means you have to give up the juicy stories that seem to serve you in smallness. Like, if you've ever been in a really bad mood and someone's trying to cheer you up, or like you have to like forgive someone or apologize or something, this is the same feeling. It's like, deep down that you're getting some kind of juice out of staying grumpy and small or in the fear. And what you really fear is the release into love. This is so much more true to me. It's far more of a fear actually I would say it's the only fear. The only fear is release, because you know that, like Krishnamurti said, everything is going to be taken away, and you're going to be left with no more drama and the juice and the sweetness of blame. Because blame is so sweet. I used to love blaming people for everything. I could not take responsibility for any of my choices. I could say that it was my girlfriend or it was this person making me feel that way. So when we can blame, we can basically overlook our own decision to stay miserable. We can overlook our choice to stay in self-defined prisons. We're the architect of our prison. So we're the architect of our miserable life. So when you see you're the architect, very quickly you can stop blaming the images on the screen, because you kind of find yourself with like a brick in one hand and like a thing in the other, and you think, like, why am I building such a prison within myself? Do I even need to keep doing this? And it's a habit. That's why I'm doing it. It's a habit of momentum, of building up my walls, until one day you look around and you say, well, it's the collective unconsciousness. It's like, no, you are the collective. Just because 7 billion or 8 billion others seem to be thinking and doing things in a certain way doesn't mean you have to. Like, you are the collective. You choose what you believe in, the beliefs that are in that collective. You can pick and choose what you want to get affected by. You're only affected by that which you choose to be. So no more excuses over like dark entities or governments or this and this. And I know that's also triggering at times, because we have such a belief in blaming something outside of the self. But the government is you. The government is an outpicturing of what you think you did in guilt. And I know that's very interesting to look into, especially around certain wars and certain things. And we won't go into that because it's a very deep topic, but we can see so clearly that everything is us. And if you say anything is not you, you start to see that it's a blame game. But we don't want to fall into the trap of saying that negativity is okay. You can see aspects of yourself which aren't in alignment, say a war or a negative decision by the government or something, and you can just see that, firstly, you don't have to choose to be affected by it. You can see, well, what's the plan of action in case, if I'm going to take inspired action in the world in alignment of me, how does that show up? And it's just drama free. We don't have to go into the negativity of blame and thing. You can say very clearly in presence, if I can see myself through my reality, how can I bring light to this situation? How can I bring love to this situation? And that's always far more effective than blame, because blame is just divisive energy. Especially, let's say a war, for example, that is the epitome of divisive energy. It's just physics. It's pure physics, where you've got bodies that seem to be in this projective energy against each other. blame energy. And so the only thing you can do is bring the energy of unity to that distortion of reality. It's like bringing the light to darkness. And really the darkness doesn't even go anywhere, because there is no darkness. There is only just absence of clarity. There's only absence of light that you're bringing to these spaces. So really this is a case of, like we keep bringing it back to, our love of being miserable, our secret addiction to separation. It's this whole dream is a rehab center. It really is. If you're going to open a retreat center, just call it a rehab center, because we're all addicted to the juice of bodies and the juice of others. So we don't need to negate bodies. We just need to see, well, what am I juicing out of limiting myself just to the body? And even to stay within the body, this whole, like, if you're in this density right now, we've all timed it and staggered ourselves so well to be in an energy field and planetary system that is looking to embody the divine here. And I remember, like, if a creature from 5,000 years ago to see you right now, you would be glowing in your frequency. But we're all so used to it. We're also used to each other's consciousness of being this high. Like, we're all so aware. But we forget just how much we have embodied the divine. Like, we used to just be beating each other over the head with rocks. So let's just take a bit of a perspective of how well we've done as a race, but then see that, you know, we still are not bringing clarity to certain areas of experience. So we're very much out of the animalistic, but we're raising in frequency to a point where there are still basically, where once it was never an issue of unworthiness. Like, cavemen never really felt unworthy. They would take everything they could. But now it's a case of, we don't feel worthy. This is as I come into this, like, planetary system, you see, like, okay, you kind of take a taste test of what's the issues in this kind of, what entities are kind of, what's the problem, you could say. It's really a case of unworthiness, of not just feeling worthy of release. Many people don't even feel worthy of love. And I always have this phrase, it's this rigid discipline, this rigid spiritual search is always a compensation for the lack of love that you feel willing to receive. Like, you could go to so many Buddhist retreat centers of meditating 10 hours a day, 15 hours a day, and really they're just compensating for the lack of worthiness they're allowing themselves to be. And it's like, some people have paths in monk and monastery, which is very much in alignment, but a lot of people that go to the retreats and go through India looking for rigid disciplines are really just looking for themselves. They're looking for love, but they're looking for it in some kind of, well, if I do enough of this, it's like you're trying to trade with reality. You're trying to trade with God. It's like, am I worthy yet? Am I worthy yet? Am I worthy yet? That's all that you're really saying when you're meditating. That's all it really is like, do I deserve release yet? Do I deserve release yet? So basically, meditation is basically a dead end. And when you hit your head on the end of the road long enough, you start to think, well, this isn't going to work. Maybe I just need to give myself enlightenment. We come back again to the inner decision. Enlightenment is an inner decision as well, which is the same as happiness to me. It's the same thing. So don't go into practice in some kind of, well, what can I get out of this? What can I earn? If you're going to investigate belief systems, just investigate why you're defending yourself against yourself. Why are you defending yourself against love? What is it serving you to block joy out of your experience? Because many people will say they're not into, they're on the path, but they're not actually wanting joy and love. They kind of want some kind of detached experience where they don't have to deal with the world anymore. But really, they're just seeing that what they truly want is love, but they don't feel worthy of it. And so what the second best they can kind of go for is some kind of detached peace away from everyone. But if you truly just start to see, well, what do I fear deeply about being released into love? A lot of the time there's a belief in the system that you alienate yourself from your family and friends. You alienate yourself from people if, like, don't get too bright now. You're going to be a bit too noisy for people. You're going to be a bit too much for people. But can you imagine if Jesus was like, oh, I'm just going to dim myself here because others might be uncomfortable? Can you see how ridiculous we can start to see? Like, maybe I'm going to annoy these like people, the Romans. Yeah, I'm just going to kind of keep my voice down here. Like, he came in and planted the seed of Christ consciousness on the planetary system to give you the opportunity to see that you can do exactly the same in your own way. And so we can just see how ridiculous it is whenever we try and be someone we're not, and we're trying to just like pack ourselves down into just, oh, it's just me, a silly human. It's basically just saying, I fear my own power, I fear my own light. And so my best bet is just to keep it under wraps. And if I keep it under wraps long enough, maybe I'll die quick and get off. But basically, like we say, we're not afraid of our own of our inadequacy, as the Marianne Williamson quote. We're not afraid of fear. We are afraid of our power and of our light, and we're afraid of what we might do with it. That's really what we're afraid of. But the only danger is to like half do something. Like if you fully saw your power, there's no when there's no resistance or very little resistance, that's the least dangerous way. Because you can see when people half hold on, it's like going down a you know, when you're chopping a knife, the best thing to do with a sharp knife is just to go at it. If you kind of half play around with it, that's the danger. You're going to cut yourself or something. So whenever there's this afraid of your own power, the best thing to do is to just really see, what is it that I'm afraid of if I'm to show up in my full authenticity, in my full light, and just notice any definitions and beliefs around why I can't be myself fully. Because we'll sometimes get a period of time of feeling really, really out, and then we'll have another period of kind of closing back in. It's like this up, down, up, down. So really, I just want you to know, to trust the positive, trust how you feel when you feel good, trust how you feel when the negative mind comes in. It will say, well, look, that you shouldn't have allowed yourself to get so big for your boots. You start listening to the voice again, and you get back in your little hole, and you just don't say any words or anything. But trust how you feel when you're in your ecstasy or your joy, or whenever, even if it's just a glimpse. That's more of a truthful way of thinking about yourself. Because if you start to trust the positive, you start to trust the love. When the negative voices come, they become so much of a whisper, so much of a pathetic little attempt of separation again, that you just start to laugh at the voices that say you need to suppress yourself. But what many people don't understand is that this is actually a mind training thing, to the point of there's so much momentum around different ways of thinking that just because you've invested poorly in negative beliefs, like a stock trader that's just terrible at deciding what joy means, then put £1 or $1, sorry, in one like way of thinking, and then have all of this millions of dollars over here, and just think that, you know, being annoyed that you're not thinking in alignment. Just know that every day you can, even if it's just $1 a day, the momentum builds up, where one day it becomes such a ridiculous notion to see yourself as anything other than pure love or just pure expression of authenticity. You just no longer invest over there. Because at a certain point, when you're in the spirit realm, you had all of your dollars in love, but you wanted to experience limitation. So you started building up energy in density. But at a certain point, you say too much in a certain way of thinking, but it was never too much. You've only ever taken on as much as you can handle in this thing. You've never taken on too much. Even if you've brought yourself to the point of suicide or war, you've actually chosen that theme to explore. There's a part of you that wanted to explore this. So God doesn't make mistakes. You can't take on too much, even if it feels as though there's too much in the system. Because if, let's say, you were to disagree with that, that's absolutely fine as well. How can reality make a mistake? That it is infinitely intelligent. It's infinitely bound. Every single theme of duality we explore, we have chosen to in order to know ourselves more deeply. Like a scuba diver that goes down under the ocean deeper and deeper, the scuba diver that goes into these densities of space and time out of the spirit realm never is disconnected from the boat of eternity. It's, no matter how deep it goes down, thinking it's disconnected itself and exiled itself from the absolute, it's always been attached to the boat of eternity. Always. There is no way, no matter how distorted and confused and dark things get, you've never left home. You've just fallen asleep on the bed of heaven, dreaming of yourself in Paris, dreaming of yourself in hell, which is the same thing. Paris and hell are the But this is what I'm trying to get at, is that you've never taken on more than you can chew. Even if your mouth's full, you're still chewing. So you just got to keep chewing until you see that ultimately you decided this. And then eventually, when you've had enough of the drama of duality, you start investing in seeing yourself in a clearer light, in a more clarified way. And so we can kind of just wrap this up in a way, in that the phrases I really want to hammer home is that, firstly, happiness isn't in a decision, but it's a decision that has to be invested in more than you want the juice of investing in negative beliefs, negative ways of thinking of yourself. Because it is juicy. We love the addiction to life, or really it's the addiction to death. So life is the seeing of no death, but we're addicted to the false little idea of death that we paid some attention to, and realized if we paid more and more attention to it, we could live out these heroic journeys of returning to the place of no death, which is life. So it's just pure, it's so simple. There's no complexity here. And if there was, it means it's not true. So everything is very simple to a certain stage, but we find ourselves so lost in duality that it seems to be complex to get back. But every day is a day to just start investing in something that's more aligned with you, how you show up in the world, how you perceive yourself. This is only what I mean by any action you do in the world, is how you perceive yourself. You can either perceive yourself as limited or as unlimited in your expression. And at a certain point, it becomes so claustrophobic to ever think of yourself as anything other than the light, that you just no longer go, that you don't even let it come up as a whisper. You just stay like that. But so many people are lost in such thickness of lies they tell themselves and beliefs they tell themselves. It really does feel true. It really does feel like these beliefs of limitation serve me in some way, but they really don't serve you. In fact, they really make life miserable, or they make death miserable. So we've just got to see that it's a decision, and it has momentum when we want to start looking at ourselves in a certain way. And it's a worthiness thing. It really is a worthiness thing. If we don't feel worthy, we'll put ourselves in some kind of long path. We'll put ourselves in some kind of duration of hell. But when you start to see that, you just have to notice, what is it that's blocking love? We don't need to force love through. We just got to see, why do I build up these defenses against it? What am I afraid of happening if I let love flood? What am I afraid to lose? And it's always negativity. It's always the juice of hatred. So next time fear rises, ask yourself, is it really the fear that I'm afraid of, or is it the love that's trying to push through and to drown away everything that I'm not? That's really what you can ask. All right, I've got to go for dinner now. My tummy's rumbling. But it's lovely to meet you.
Thank you, Matt, so
All
much.
right.
I so appreciate it. And, goodbye, YouTubers. I'm gonna cut off the recording here.